Well, good morning, church. And this morning we are looking at the second discussion question from the sermon notes this week. And it really focuses on how culture is trying to affect Christianity in a lot of ways. And so when you look at number 2, it says, what are some of the names or identities that our culture and world have given to the church and Christians today? How are the Babylonian officials trying to change the identity of Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? And why was it important for Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to remember who they were? How is our culture and world trying to change our identity today? And why is it important we remember who we are? Well, that's a lot of questions, so I'm going to try and talk about mainly a couple of those. But first off, in what ways were the Babylonian officials trying to change the identity of Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? And I think the easiest thing to point out is, first off, that 3/4 of the name I just read were their Babylonian names and not their Hebrew names. I don't exactly know why the book of Daniel does this, but if you look, Daniel is referred to as Daniel more than his Babylonian name, although it does tell us what his name was. It's Belshazzar. But he's referred to as Daniel when he's talked about. His friends, however, are continually referred to by their Babylonian names. And that might seem kind of weird, like, well, it's just a name change, like anyone can do that today. But in that time, names had a lot more importance to them than they even do today. I mean, now there can be family importance to the name, and maybe you just really like the name or the meaning behind it. But it was a huge part of your identity back then. And so for them getting their name changed and being ripped away from their homes, I think they're trying to change every part of their lives. Like the Babylonians were trying to completely change who they were. And for us, as Christians, we're probably not going to have quite the same scale that those guys had, but what I can tell you is our culture is trying to grab onto us and say, no, your identity is based on your hobby or your job or your sexual orientation or your gender or all these different things, when the reality is there is one identity first and foremost that we need to cling to. And when you look in, there's several different passages that are listed there, but we're going to look at 1 John chapter 3, verses 1 through 2. It says, "See what great love the Father has given us, that we should be called God's children, and we are. The reason the world does not know us is that it didn't know Him. Dear friends, we are God's children now, and what we will be has not yet been revealed. We know that when He appears, we will be like Him, because we will see Him as He is. And everyone who has this hope in Him purifies himself just as He is pure." First and foremost, our true identity, what should fuel us and help us, like the number one thing that comes out of our mouth when someone says, if you had to pick one word to describe you, what would it be? Is Christian, or a follower of Jesus Christ. That is my identity. That makes up everything I am comes first and foremost from that. And that's clear when you read through Daniel and his friends' stories, that they truly made their faith their identity, that they didn't let being ripped away from their homes, being given new names, change that. They recognize, you know what, that doesn't change who I am ultimately, and that is a follower of God. I'm going to try to live this faith out regardless of what the cost is, regardless of if I understand why God's doing what He is around me. We're going to continue talking about a little bit about different ways the culture kind of pulls us in different directions this Thursday, so we'll see you then.